At Christmas dinner, my son Ethan and his wife Serena unveiled plans to sell my home, the one I inherited, to fund their lavish lifestyle, moving me to a tiny apartment. They publicly mocked my shock. I simply smiled, a silent promise forming. They had no idea my quiet reaction hit a storm. Follow my story to see what happened next. Like, share, and let me know where you're listening from. The scent of pine and cinnamon usually filled Eleanor's home with warmth and nostalgia during the holidays. This Christmas, however, felt different, heavy with an unspoken tension that pricked at her senses even before her family arrived. She moved through the familiar rooms of the house she had called home for over 40 years, a place where she had raised her son, Ethan, and shared countless cherished moments with her late husband, Arthur. Every creaking floorboard, every faded photograph on the mantelpiece held a story, a memory she treasured. This house was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a living testament to her past, a sanctuary of love and resilience. Eleanor was a woman of quiet strength, her silver hair elegantly coiffed, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of experiences, both joyful and sorrowful. Since Arthur's passing 5 years ago, the house had been her steadfast companion, its familiar comforts a balm to her grieving heart. She had meticulously prepared Christmas dinner, a tradition Arthur had always adored. The roast was browning perfectly, the cranberry sauce shimmered in a crystal bowl, and the table was set with her best china, each piece holding a memory of celebrations past. Her son, Ethan, arrived first. A tall man in his late 30s with a perpetually weary look about him. He offered a perfunctory hug, his gaze already drifting towards the living room, probably assessing its contents rather than appreciating the effort his mother had put into the day. Beside him was Serena, his wife of 10 years, a woman whose beauty was undeniable, but often overshadowed by a sharp, calculating glint in her eyes. Serena carried herself with an air of entitlement, a characteristic that had grown more pronounced over the years. She offered Eleanor a tight smile that barely reached her eyes, then swept into the living room, her attention immediately drawn to the antique credenza Arthur had handcrafted. "Looks good, Eleanor," Serena said, her voice a little too loud, a little too saccharine. "They don't make furniture like this anymore, do they?" Eleanor merely hummed in response, her smile fixed. She knew Serena's compliments often came with an ulterior motive. Ethan, meanwhile, was already helping himself to a canapé, barely acknowledging his mother's presence beyond a nod. Their relationship had become strained since Arthur's death. Ethan, influenced heavily by Serena, had grown increasingly distant. His calls focused primarily on Eleanor's financial well-being, or rather, the perceived untapped potential of her assets. Soon after, Serena's parents, Valerie and Frank, arrived, followed by her younger sister, Chloe. Valerie was a woman of expensive tastes and an equally expensive opinion of herself, always impeccably dressed and perfectly coiffed. Frank, her husband, was a quiet man who generally deferred to his wife, offering little in the way of conversation or independent thought. Chloe, on the other hand, was vivacious and sharp-tongued, quick to echo Serena's sentiments with an even more biting edge. The room, which moments ago held the quiet dignity of Eleanor's preparations, now buzzed with an energy that felt less like festive cheer and more like a gathering of vultures circling their prey. Dinner commenced, a strained affair despite Eleanor's best efforts to steer the conversation towards lighter topics. Ethan offered monosyllabic answers, while Serena and her family chattered animatedly about their recent cruise and future travel plans, making no effort to include Eleanor in their anecdotes. Eleanor ate in silence, a knot tightening in her stomach, an instinct warning her that something significant was about to unfold. The moment came just as Eleanor was clearing the dessert plates, still warm from the apple pie she had baked. Serena cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat but remained silent. "Eleanor," Serena began, her tone carefully modulated. "Ethan and I have some wonderful news to share, something that will be beneficial for everyone, especially for you." Eleanor paused, a plate in hand, her gaze settling on Serena. "Oh?" she prompted, her voice steady, betraying none of the apprehension swirling within her. Serena exchanged a quick, knowing glance with Ethan, who offered a weak, almost imperceptible nod. We've been doing a lot of planning for our future. And for yours, Serena continued, her smile widening into something predatory. With the market being so incredibly favorable right now, it simply makes sense to capitalize on this opportunity. We've decided it's time to sell this house. The words hung in the air, each one a hammer blow to Eleanor's heart. Sell her house? The house Arthur had loved? The house she had poured her life into? She felt a cold dread creep up her spine. Sell? My house? Eleanor repeated, her voice barely a whisper, though she forced herself to keep her expression neutral. Yes, Serena exclaimed, oblivious to the tremor in Eleanor's voice. It's a fantastic investment opportunity for us, and it will free you from the burden of maintaining such a large property. Frankly, it's far too big for one person, isn't it, Ethan? Ethan mumbled something in agreement, not quite meeting his mother's eye. Valerie and Frank nodded enthusiastically, while Chloe chimed in. It's a win-win, Eleanor. You get to downsize, and Ethan and Serena get a much-needed boost for their dreams. You know, that Mediterranean cruise they've been wanting to take, and maybe a deposit on a larger place for themselves. Eleanor felt a wave of nausea. Her home, her sanctuary, was being treated as mere collateral for their lavish desires. And where, pray tell, would I go? She asked, her voice regaining its steel, though she fought to keep it calm. Serena's smile didn't falter. We've found a lovely, quaint, little apartment for you. It's perfect, really. Small, low maintenance, in a quiet building. It's a bit out of the way, but you won't have to worry about a thing. A bit out of the way likely meant miles from anything familiar, isolated. A cage for her golden years. The insult was raw, blunt, and delivered with a chilling lack of empathy. They hadn't consulted her, hadn't asked, hadn't even considered her feelings. This wasn't a discussion, it was a pronouncement, Valerie added. It's for the best, dear. You're not getting any younger. All this upkeep, she gestured, vaguely around the room, as if the very air was dusty and neglected. Eleanor looked at Ethan, her son, hoping for a flicker of recognition, a hint of protest, but found only a blank stare. He seemed to have completely abdicated his role as her son, allowing Serena to dictate their shared future, and hers. The betrayal stung more than the insult itself, but Eleanor, despite the crushing weight of their words, simply smiled. It was a faint, almost imperceptible curve of her lips, a smile that hid an ocean of hurt and a rapidly hardening resolve. They misinterpreted it as acceptance, relief even. They had no idea that beneath her calm exterior, a silent promise was forming, a plan beginning to take shape. This house, Arthur's legacy, would not be sold to fund their selfishness. They had underestimated Eleanor, and they were about to learn that quiet strength could be far more formidable than any shouting match. The evening concluded with the clinking of glasses, Serena's family toasting to their brilliant plan, utterly oblivious to the storm Eleanor was preparing to unleash. The heavy oak front door clicked shut behind them, leaving a silence in its wake that was far louder than the preceding clamor. The festive scent of Christmas dinner quickly dissipated, replaced by the bitter tang of betrayal. I stood in the entryway, the silence pressing in on me, feeling as though the very walls of my beloved home had witnessed an unspeakable act of sacrilege. My carefully constructed calm began to crumble, revealing the raw, throbbing wound beneath. My son, Ethan. The boy I had nurtured, loved, and sacrificed for, had sat there, mute and complicit, while his wife and her family dissected my future and laid claim to my past. The image of his weak nod, his averted gaze, flashed before my eyes, twisting the knife in my heart. How could he? How could the son I raised, the boy who once looked at me with such adoration, now treat me with such cold indifference, reducing me to an inconvenient burden, a mere obstacle in their path to greater wealth and self-indulgence? I walked into the living room, the scene of their pronouncement, and stared at the antique credenza Serena had so admiringly, so calculatingly, eyed. Arthur had spent months crafting that piece, his hands calloused from the labor, his face alight with pride when he presented it to me. Every piece of furniture, every heirloom, every book on the shelf was imbued with his presence, with our shared history, This house was more than just a place to live. It was a repository of our life together, a sanctuary built on love and commitment. It was Arthur's legacy, and by extension, mine. "They want to sell you out, old girl," I murmured to the credenza, my voice cracking slightly. "They want to turn our memories into a down payment for their next cruise." A fresh wave of indignation washed over me, hotter and more potent than the initial shock. This wasn't just about my comfort or my home. It was about respect, about dignity, about the very essence of what Arthur and I had built. I sank onto the sofa, the same sofa where Arthur and I had spent countless evenings, reading, talking, simply being together. I closed my eyes, picturing his kind face, his warm smile. He had always been my rock, my steadfast partner. I remembered the day we bought this house, the excitement in his eyes, the dreams we spun for our future within its walls. "We'll grow old here, pet," he had said, using his pet name for me. "This will be our haven." And I had promised him, implicitly and explicitly, that I would protect our haven, our legacy. That promise resonated in my bones now, hardening my resolve. The initial sting of hurt began to transform into a quiet, burning fury. They had underestimated me. They saw an elderly widow, vulnerable and alone, easily manipulated. They saw dollar signs where I saw a lifetime of love. They had mocked my shock, dismissed my silent plea. Serena's condescending smile, Chloe's snide remarks, Valerie's patronizing tone. Each memory fanned the flames of my anger. Even Frank, usually so unassuming, had offered a weak, complicit smile. They were a unified front of greed and callousness, but they had made a grave mistake. They had mistaken my quiet nature for weakness, my composure for capitulation. What they didn't understand was that a lifetime of quiet observation had taught me much. I might not be outwardly boisterous, but I possessed an inner strength, a resilience forged in the fires of life's trials. And now, that strength was about to be unleashed. I stood up, pushing away the lingering ache in my heart. There was no time for sorrow now. There was only action. My mind, usually content with the gentle rhythms of daily life, began to whir, strategizing. They thought they had presented me with a fait accompli, an unchangeable decree. My first thought was legal counsel. I knew I couldn't fight this battle alone. I needed someone who understood the intricacies of property law, someone who could navigate the legal landscape and stand as my champion. Arthur had always handled all the financial and legal matters, leaving me a comfortable but somewhat sheltered existence. Now, it was up to me. I walked into my study, a room I hadn't used much since Arthur passed, its desk still laden with his papers and books. I pulled out his old leather-bound address book, its pages thin with age. I remembered him mentioning a lawyer, a sharp individual who had handled some of their estate planning years ago. Robert Harrison. That was the name. No, wait. I corrected myself, recalling the new names I'd decided on for clarity. It was Mr. Davies. Yes, Mr. Davies. I found his number, a sense of purpose solidifying within me. This wasn't just about keeping my home. It was about sending a message that I would not be bullied, that my life and my choices were my own, and that Arthur's memory deserved to be protected. They wanted to teach me a lesson about the realities of life for a widow. I would teach them a lesson about consequences. I would approach this methodically, calmly, but with unwavering resolve. They had played their hand, arrogant in their certainty of victory. Now it was my turn. The game had just begun, and they had no idea they were playing against a silent warrior. I picked up the phone, my fingers steady as I dialed Mr. Davies's office. The 2 weeks following that horrific Christmas dinner were a blur of disbelief and escalating dismay. My beautiful home, once a sanctuary of order and cherished memories, slowly began to transform into something unrecognizable, a chaotic reflection of its new, uninvited occupants. It started subtly, a misplaced item here, a lingering smell there, but soon the changes became overt, audacious, and deeply unsettling. Frank, Serena's father, decided that my meticulously organized garage, which Arthur had lovingly maintained as a clean, functional space, would make an ideal workshop and personal smoking lounge. The pungent aroma of stale cigarettes and sawdust quickly permeated the air, seeping through the walls, a constant, unwelcome presence. I could smell it from the curb, a jarring alteration to the familiar scent of my gardenias and freshly cut grass. Tools, rusty and ill-kept, now littered Arthur's workbench, and an old armchair, clearly salvaged from a curbside collection, served as Frank's throne amidst the clutter. Chloe, Serena's sister, meanwhile, had taken over the spare bedroom with the voraciousness of a territorial animal. What was once a cozy guest room, ready for visitors, became an extension of her own personal closet, overflowing with clothes, shoes, and an endless array of beauty products. Her belongings spilled out into the hallway, encroaching on the bathroom, making it clear that she saw the entire house as her personal domain. The worst part, however, was the insidious way their requests morphed into demands. They stopped asking, polite in a superficial way, and simply began telling me what to do. One afternoon, while I was tending to my rose bushes, the phone rang. It was Valerie. "Eleanor. Honey," she cooed, her voice saccharine sweet. "Could you pick up some groceries on your way over tomorrow? We're running low on a few things, and I just can't face the supermarket crowds." She then rattled off a list of expensive, gourmet items that I rarely bought for myself. Before I could even formulate a response, Chloe piped up from the background, her voice clear and sharp. "And could you grab some cigarettes for Frank while you're out?" "Marlboro Lights. He's particular about his brand." I found myself agreeing, the words slipping out almost automatically. It was a strange, unsettling feeling, as if an invisible thread was slowly binding me to their will. Over the next few days, "Eleanor, could you," became "Eleanor, do this." I found myself cleaning up after them, doing their laundry, even cooking meals that they barely acknowledged before retreating to their rooms or to Frank's smoky garage. I was spending more time in my own home serving them than they were actually spending enjoying it, or even acknowledging my presence as anything other than a silent, efficient housekeeper. I tried to voice my concerns to Ethan. "Ethan, this isn't temporary anymore," I said one evening, trying to keep my voice even. "They've brought so much stuff, and they're not even looking for apartments. They're just living here." He waved a dismissive hand, not even looking up from his phone. "Mom, you're overthinking this. They're family now, and it's just temporary. Serena says they have several leads lined up. It's just a tough market, you know." His words were hollow, devoid of any genuine reassurance. A rehearsed script, designed to placate me, without actually addressing the issue. The temporary had stretched into an indefinite stay, and the leads were, to my knowledge, pure fiction. The breaking point, the moment when the last shred of my hope for a peaceful resolution shattered, arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I walked into the dining room, drawn by the clinking of china, and found Valerie and Chloe with a large cardboard box on the table. They were carefully, almost casually, packing away my grandmother's china set, the one I had inherited and treasured for its delicate beauty and sentimental value. Each piece was a whisper of family history, a tangible link to generations past. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharp with sudden alarm. Chloe looked up, startled, a soup tureen in her hand. "Oh, Eleanor, you scared me." She then flashed a wide, unapologetic grin. "We're just clearing out some clutter. This old set? It's just taking up space in the cabinet." Ethan said it was fine. My heart pounded. My grandmother's china? Taking up space? "Chloe, that's a family heirloom." Valerie, ever the pragmatist, interjected smoothly. "Darling, it's Ethan's china now, technically, as your son and heir, and he asked us to handle it. We found a buyer who will give us $200 for the whole set. Can you believe it? 20 years ago, it would have been worthless. But these vintage things are back in style. $200 for my grandmother's irreplaceable china. The audacity, the disrespect, was staggering. My vision blurred with a sudden surge of unshed tears, but I blinked them back, refusing to give them the satisfaction. This was an open declaration of war. I confronted Ethan later that evening, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and profound sadness. "Ethan, your wife and her family are selling my grandmother's china. How could you let them do that?" He looked genuinely surprised, as if I were overreacting to a trivial matter. "Mom, it's just dishes," he said, shrugging, his eyes still fixed on his phone screen. "You haven't used them in years. Isn't that better than them just sitting in a cabinet, gathering dust? We need the space, and a bit of extra cash wouldn't hurt." I stared at him, truly stared, and in that moment, I realized I was talking to a stranger. The boy I had raised, the son I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by this indifferent, entitled man who saw only monetary value, completely blind to sentiment, to history, to my pain. It wasn't just the china, it was the entire situation. They were permanent residents, treating me as their maid, and my son, my own flesh and blood, was not only allowing it, but actively enabling it. The cold, hard truth settled in my heart. This was not temporary. This was my life now. Unless I fought back. And I would. The morning after the China incident, a profound sense of despair had settled over me. My mind replayed Ethan's dismissive words, Serena's casual cruelty, and Valerie's cold justification. I couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped, a prisoner in my own home. But even amidst the desolation, a flicker of that quiet fury remained, simmering beneath the surface. I knew I needed to maintain a semblance of normalcy, to gather my strength, and, more importantly, to gather evidence. My plants. No one else ever remembered them. They were my quiet companions, their verdant leaves a stark contrast to the growing desolation within the house. So, with a heavy heart, I made my way to the house, a watering can in hand, an unbidden ache in my chest as I approached what was once my peaceful haven. As I entered, the usual cacophony of their presence assaulted my ears. The television blared, and Chloe's voice, shrill and confident, echoed from the living room. I found her sprawled on the couch at 11 in the morning, still in her pajamas, phone glued to her ear. She didn't even acknowledge my presence. "No, girl. I'm telling you," she boasted into the phone, her voice laced with smug satisfaction. "This setup is perfect. Free house, free utilities, and the old lady even brings groceries. You should see her, running around like a headless chicken." My hands, gripping the watering can, began to tremble. The old lady. That was me. That was how they saw me. A useful, compliant fool, a source of free labor and resources. The water sloshed over the rim of the can, spilling onto the polished floorboards, mirroring the turmoil rising within me. The rage, cold and precise, began to crystallize. I moved silently past her, pretending not to listen, making my way to the kitchen. From the corner of my eye, I saw Valerie at the dining table, surrounded by stacks of papers. She looked up, her expression momentarily startled, before quickly composing herself. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her smile too bright. "Just doing some financial planning for Ethan and Serena, you know, making sure their future is secure." She quickly shuffled some bank statements, obscuring their contents from my view. Their financial planning. With my money, I thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. Later, I decided to tackle the one area in the house where I might still find some semblance of my own life. Ethan's old desk in the study, now completely buried under Chloe's overflowing clothes and accessories. I needed a specific tax document from a few years ago that Arthur had kept there, information that Mr. Davies had requested. The room, once a quiet sanctuary, was a chaotic mess, a visual representation of the respect they had for my home, for me. As I began to gingerly sift through the piles of Chloe's fashion magazines and discarded jewelry, looking for Ethan's old filing cabinet, a folder, precariously balanced on a stack of sweaters, toppled over. Papers spilled across the floor. Among them were printouts, glossy and stark, from a dating website. My eyes scanned the header. wealthyconnections.com. A chill ran down my spine. I picked up the topmost printout. It was a profile. Serena's profile. My breath hitched as I read. 28 years old, vibrant and ambitious, looking for a serious relationship with financial security. Homeownership required. Family wealth preferred. My heart pounded against my ribs. Ethan. He wasn't just a convenient target. He was the target. Serena hadn't fallen in love. She had gone fishing, and Ethan, with his stable job and his mother's inherited home, had been the biggest fish in the pond. I frantically gathered the scattered papers. There were printed conversations, too. Serena, messaging other men, asking alarmingly detailed financial questions, always ending with a variation of, "My family's going through a rough patch, and I'm looking for a partner, someone whose family could help us all get back on our feet." The deception was breathtaking in its audacity. Then, buried deeper, I found screenshots of text messages. Dated 6 months before she and Ethan even met. They were between Serena and Chloe. The words leapt out at me, cold and cruel, confirming my worst fears. Chloe, did you find out about the mom's finances yet? Serena, working on it. He says she's got savings and owns her apartment, thinking she might be worth more than we thought. Chloe, good. Frank's been asking when we can move in. Serena, soon. I'm working on getting her to pay for the wedding gift. Something big. Maybe a house down payment. I bet I could get her to buy us a whole house if I play it right. My legs gave out. I sank onto a pile of Chloe's clothes, the papers rustling in my trembling hands. This wasn't some organic escalation of greed. This was planned. Every calculated move, every feigned concern, every manipulative smile, it was all part of a grand scheme, orchestrated long before Ethan had even met her. The wedding gift she wanted me to pay for, the house down payment. It had all been a prelude to this. To them moving in and slowly but surely taking everything. My eyes darted to another stack of papers. Emails. Between Serena and Valerie. Subject line. Temporary housing plan. Once the old lady gets used to us being there, Serena had written, she won't be able to kick us out without looking like the bad guy. It's brilliant. Valerie's reply. Think he'll catch on? Serena's chilling response. Ethan's clueless. Classic mama's boy syndrome. As long as I keep him happy in bed and cook his favorite meals, he'll do whatever I say. The words hit me like a physical blow. Clueless mama's boy. That was her assessment of my son. And he, oblivious, had walked right into her trap, pulling me in with him. The sheer calculation, the cold-blooded manipulation, made me feel physically ill. My stomach heaved, and I stumbled towards the bathroom, barely making it before I threw up, the bitter taste of bile and betrayal filling my mouth. As I splashed cold water on my face, I heard voices approaching. Panic seized me. I quickly scooped up all the incriminating papers, stuffing them into my purse. Just as Chloe appeared in the doorway, still on her phone, she glanced at me, her eyes lingering for a moment, then turned back to her call. Yeah, she said, her voice loud and clear. We'll probably be here another year at least, maybe longer if things work out right. She winked at me, a condescending, knowing smirk playing on her lips, as if to say, we both know you can't do anything about it. I walked out of the house in a daze, the weight of the papers in my purse feeling heavier than lead. The drive home was a blur. The anger, however, was crystal clear. It burned hotter now, a cleansing fire that purged all traces of hurt and sadness. They had played their hand. Now, it was time for me to play mine. And I would show them just how wrong they were about the old lady. If you're finding my story shocking, you won't believe what happens next. Make sure to keep watching, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a single detail as I fight back against this betrayal. The shock of what I discovered in Ethan's old desk fueled 3 sleepless nights. My mind, usually a quiet garden of pleasant thoughts, became a meticulous battlefield. 43 years as a school secretary had ingrained in me an unwavering organizational skill and an almost photographic memory for details. Every single document I had found, the dating profiles, the text message screenshots, the damning emails, I copied them, carefully, methodically. I organized them chronologically, creating a timeline of their deceit, a stark narrative of their calculated manipulation. This was my evidence, my shield, and my weapon. With my carefully assembled folder tucked securely under my arm, I called Mr. Davies. He remembered me, a kind man with keen eyes and a gentle demeanor that belied a sharp legal mind. When I laid out my story, showing him the stack of papers, his expression shifted from polite interest to grave concern. He listened patiently, interrupting only to ask clarifying questions, his pen scratching notes on a legal pad. After reviewing the documents and listening to my account, he leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "Eleanor," he began, his voice calm, "this is certainly a challenging situation, but I have some potentially good news regarding your home." My heart leaped, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. "You see," he continued, "while it is true that you had intentions of gifting the property to Ethan, and we did draft the initial paperwork, you never actually transferred full ownership to him. The deed clearly shows you as the primary owner, with Ethan listed as a beneficiary upon your death or upon your explicit written consent to transfer ownership. That written consent was never executed." A wave of relief, so profound it almost made me weak in the knees, washed over me. I still owned the house. My house. The legal authority to evict them, to reclaim what was mine, surged through me like a powerful current. "So," I managed, my voice a little shaky, "I can—" Mr. Davies nodded. "Indeed. As the primary owner, you have the legal right to evict anyone not on the deed or without your express written permission to reside there, given the evidence you've presented, the property damage, the clear intent to defraud, the emotional distress they've caused. We can build a very strong case for immediate removal, possibly even arguing harassment." "Harassment," I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "Yes, I can prove that. The smell of Frank's cigarettes permeates everything. Their demands, their blatant disrespect." My voice trailed off as my anger resurfaced, cold and steady. He smiled, a reassuring glint in his eyes. "Excellent. Document everything. Every instance of damage, every unwanted demand, every disrespectful remark. Photos, recordings, anything you can get." Armed with Mr. Davies's advice and a renewed sense of purpose, I returned to the house, no longer just a maid or the old lady, but an investigator on a mission. This time, I carried my camera, meticulously photographing every cigarette burn on the antique side table, every mysterious stain on the carpet, the growing holes in the wall where Chloe had haphazardly hung her art, and the overall disarray that now plagued every room. It was painful to witness the desecration of my home, but each click of the camera was a hammer blow against their arrogance. I also began to record conversations. My smartphone, small and innocuous, became my silent witness. During my next visit, I casually placed it on the kitchen counter, ensuring it was recording before Valerie swept in, still in her bathrobe despite it being mid-afternoon, surrounded by a breakfast mess she hadn't bothered to clean. "Eleanor, thank God you're here," she exclaimed, her voice conveying a manufactured sense of urgency. "Could you clean this up? And maybe run to the store? We're completely out of oat milk, and Chloe simply can't function without her latte." She gestured vaguely at the dirty dishes and empty cereal boxes. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm and even, my hand subtly adjusting the phone on the counter. "I'm not really here to clean today, Valerie," I stated, my voice surprisingly steady. "I just wanted to check on the house, make sure everything's in order." Valerie's pleasant facade cracked. Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, check on the house? This is Ethan's house now. You gave it to him." There was a possessive edge to her voice, a subtle warning. "I gave it to Ethan." "Yes," I clarified, my gaze unwavering. "But I didn't give it to you, or Chloe, or Frank." Just then, Chloe strolled in, her phone already up to her ear, but she paused, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, her voice tinged with a feigned concern that didn't quite hide her underlying aggression. "Just clarifying some details about the living arrangements," I replied, my voice still remarkably even. This was meant to be temporary, as I understand it. Chloe let out a dismissive laugh. Temporary? According to who? We're family now. Ethan wants us here. And he's definitely more comfortable with us around than with you hovering all the time. Valerie chimed in, reinforcing her daughter's words. That's right. Ethan says a lot of things when you're not around, Eleanor. He's a married man now. He doesn't need his mommy hovering all the time, constantly checking up on him. The implication was clear. I was an interfering old woman. And my son, their pawn, was no longer mine. I remained silent, absorbing their words, their venom. The recording light on my phone blinked almost imperceptibly. Their casual cruelty, their open contempt for my bond with Ethan, was another painful confirmation of the depth of their manipulation. I simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of their brazenness, and then left. My purse feeling heavy with not just my phone, but with hours of their recorded arrogance. My heart ached for the son I was losing, but the iron will to fight for my home, for Arthur's legacy, solidified even further. The raw edge of their dismissal still grated on my nerves as I drove away from what was once my peaceful home. My conversation with Valerie and Chloe had yielded valuable recordings, undeniable proof of their intentions and disrespect. Yet, the sting of Chloe's final, knowing smirk, and Valerie's condescending remarks about Ethan not needing his mommy hovering, twisted a fresh knot in my stomach. I knew what I had to do, but a small, persistent part of me yearned for my son, for the Ethan I had raised. I tried calling him. Once, twice, then a third time. Each call went straight to voicemail, a sterile, recorded message from the son who used to call me every evening just to chat. It was a deliberate snub, a clear signal. He was avoiding me. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I decided to try the house landline, a number I rarely used anymore. It rang once, then twice, before a voice, sickeningly bright and saccharine, answered. It was Serena. Hello? Oh, Eleanor, hi. Her voice, bubbly and fake, grated on my ears. To what do we owe the pleasure? Serena, I said, my voice carefully modulated, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. I'm calling for Ethan. Is he there? Oh, he can't come to the phone right now, she chirped. A slight pause before she added. He's very busy. You know, with work and all the stress of looking for a new place for us. The lie hung in the air, thick and cloying. He's just absolutely swamped. It's important that I speak to him, I insisted, my grip tightening on the phone receiver. Please, just tell him his mother is calling. The artificial brightness in Serena's voice vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, hard edge. Look, Eleanor, she began, her tone sharper, more direct. Ethan asked me to tell you something. He's been really stressed lately, with all your constant visits and, frankly, criticizing how we keep the house. It's making him uncomfortable. My heart sank, a heavy stone dropping into a well of despair. Criticizing how we keep the house. She was twisting my concern for my home into an attack, poisoning Ethan against me. He just needs some space, Serena continued, her voice gaining an almost triumphant quality. We're adults, Eleanor. We don't need you checking up on us all the time. He feels like you don't trust him to manage his own life. The betrayal was complete. My own son, through his wife, was telling me to back off, to disappear, to leave them alone. The raw pain was almost unbearable, but I forced myself to maintain my composure. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of hearing me break. I understand, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you're right. I'll give you some space. I heard a faint, satisfied sigh on the other end of the line, a small sound of victory. She believed she had won. I hung up the phone, the receiver feeling impossibly heavy in my hand. The line was dead, and with it, for all intents and purposes, so was my direct connection to Ethan. I felt utterly cut off, cast aside by the one person I had always believed would stand by me. The grief was immense, a gaping wound in my soul, but beneath the grief, a new emotion began to solidify, hardening the edges of my resolve. It was no longer just anger. It was a fierce, unshakable determination. They had gone too far. They had taken my kindness for weakness, my love for a burden. Now, they would face the consequences. The next morning, with the first rays of dawn, I was at Mr. Davies's office, my folder bulging with new evidence. I played him the recordings, showed him the photos of the damage. His expression, which had been concerned before, now hardened with a professional grimness. "Eleanor," he said, tapping a pen thoughtfully against his legal pad, "this isn't just a family dispute anymore. This is harassment, possibly fraud given the extent of their premeditation, and definitely unlawful occupation of your property. We have more than enough grounds to proceed with an immediate eviction. We can argue for property damage, and more importantly, for preventing you, the primary owner, from having proper access to your own home." He looked at me, his gaze steady. "Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this, Eleanor? Once these papers are served, there's likely no turning back. Your relationship with Ethan? It may be permanently damaged." I met his gaze, my eyes dry, my voice steady. My relationship with Ethan was damaged the moment he let them treat me like their servant, the moment he allowed them to desecrate our home and disrespect Arthur's memory. It was damaged when he told me, through his wife, to disappear. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. At least this way, I'll have my dignity back, and Arthur's legacy will be protected. They chose this path, Mr. Davies. Not me. I'm simply choosing to fight back. A grim smile touched my lips. "Let them try," I said, thinking of Serena, Valerie, and Chloe. I had raised Ethan as a single mother for years before Arthur came into our lives. I had dealt with demanding parents, unruly children, and bureaucratic nonsense for 43 years as a school secretary. I was not a fragile old woman easily intimidated. Let them try. The legal process, once set in motion, moved with a surprising swiftness. On a crisp Tuesday morning, just as the sun began to warm the winter air, the eviction papers were served. I imagined the scene, the shock, the disbelief on their faces as the official document landed in their hands. I didn't have to wait long for confirmation. My phone rang minutes later, practically vibrating off the counter. It was Chloe, her voice shrill with panic, a stark contrast to her usual brazen confidence. "What the hell is this, Eleanor?" she shrieked, clearly beside herself. "You can't kick us out. This is Ethan's house." I took a deep breath, channeling the calm resolve I had cultivated over these harrowing weeks. "No, Chloe," I stated, my voice steady. "It's my house, and you, Valerie, and Frank have 30 days to remove yourselves and all your belongings. After that, you're squatters, and the consequences will be far more severe." I hung up, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. A few minutes later, Ethan's number flashed on my screen. This time, he wasn't sending me to voicemail. His voice, when I answered, was a chaotic mix of confusion, anger, and a desperate plea. "Mom, what's going on? Serena just called me, completely hysterical, saying you're trying to throw them out on the street. What's wrong with you?" His defensiveness, even now, stung deeply. "Ethan," I said, my voice firm, "I need to meet with you. Alone. And not at the house. Somewhere public. There's something you need to see. Something you need to understand." "Why alone?" he demanded, his voice laced with suspicion. "Why can't you just tell me now?" "Because they've been lying to you, Ethan," I explained, each word carefully chosen. "That's ridiculous," he scoffed, disbelief clear in his tone. "Serena loves me. Her family is just trying to help us out." "Serena loves your bank account and the house I gave you," I countered, allowing a sliver of my pain and anger to cut through. "And her family is helping themselves to everything you have, including your mother." His stunned silence was all the confirmation I needed that my words had landed. "Meet me at the old diner on Elm Street," I instructed, naming a place we used to frequent when he was a boy. "In 30 minutes. And if you don't show up, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." He arrived precisely on time, looking haggard and stressed, his eyes bloodshot. He sat across from me in the booth, his arms crossed, a clear posture of defiance. "Okay, Mom," he said, his voice clipped. "What is this all about? You're really going to throw them out after everything they've done for us?" I didn't answer with words. Instead, I calmly reached into my oversized purse and pulled out the folder, spreading its contents across the Formica tabletop. Serena's wealthy connections profile was on top, followed by the printouts of her conversations with other men, her explicit search parameters for financially secure partners. Then came the devastating screenshots of texts between her and Chloe, detailing their plan to exploit my savings and own my apartment. Finally, the emails between Serena and Valerie, discussing how to get me to pay for a wedding gift and how to manipulate me into letting them move in, confident I couldn't kick them out without looking like the bad guy. Ethan picked up the first page, a frown creasing his brow. As he read Serena's profile, his face, already pale, turned an ashen white. His eyes darted from one damning line to the next. He moved on to the texts, his hands beginning to shake almost imperceptibly. He saw the cold calculation, the cynical disregard for his feelings, for my existence, his own mother, labeled the old lady, his own love for her dismissed as mama's boy syndrome. This can't be real," he whispered, his voice hoarse, his gaze fixed on the words, "Ethan's clueless. As long as I keep him happy in bed and cook his favorite meals, he'll do whatever I say." The sheer brutality of the words, the mockery, was laid bare. "We weren't people to them, Ethan," I said, my voice soft now, devoid of anger, filled only with sorrow. "We were opportunities. You were their meal ticket, and I was their unwitting financier and housekeeper." He slumped back against the vinyl booth, his head in his hands, utterly devastated. The weight of the deception, the realization that he had been manipulated, that he had defended his abusers to his own mother, crashed down on him. His broad shoulders shook. Just then, his phone rang. He looked at the screen, saw Serena's name, and slowly picked it up, putting it on speaker. "Ethan! Oh, baby, thank God!" Serena's voice, thick with feigned tears, filled the diner booth. "Your mother's gone crazy. She's trying to break up our marriage, trying to throw my family out on the street. She's just jealous, darling. She can't stand to see us happy." Ethan stared at the papers on the table, then at me. His eyes, now welling with tears, hardened. "Serena," he said, his voice low, a tremor running through it. "Did you ever love me?" A long, excruciating pause stretched across the line. "Ethan, what kind of question is that?" she stammered, her voice suddenly losing its tearful quality, replaced by a nervous edge. "Of course. I love you. Don't listen to your mother. She's trying to poison your mind." "Did you ever love me?" he repeated, his voice rising. "Or was I just homeownership required, family wealth preferred?" He quoted her profile directly, the words hanging in the air, a death knell to their sham marriage. "Did you lie about the house, Serena? Did you know it was still Mom's? Did you plan all of this from the beginning, with your sister and your parents, to move in and take everything?" Her pretense completely shattered. "Ethan, darling, it's not like that. I was just being practical. Your mother, she needs a purpose. And the house is too big for her." The veneer of a loving wife had evaporated, revealing the cold, calculating woman beneath. Ethan's face, streaked with tears, was now a mask of pure rage. "Don't call me darling. Don't call me again. Ever. You have 30 days to get out of the house, you and your parasitic family. And then I never want to see any of you again." He snapped the phone shut, cutting her off mid-protest. He looked at the blank screen, then slowly lowered it to the table, his hand shaking. "You're a stranger," he whispered, "who stole 2 years of my life." He turned to me, his eyes brimming. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he choked out, his voice broken. "I'm so incredibly sorry." The 30 days that followed Ethan's revelation at the diner were a slow-motion explosion of chaos and desperation from Serena and her family. My phone, once ignored by Ethan, now rang incessantly with their numbers. Chloe tried shrill, tearful calls, alternating between feigned remorse and outright threats. Valerie attempted guilt trips, painting herself as a heartbroken mother-in-law, even contacting my old workplace, Miss Jenkins at the school, to spread rumors about my supposed cruelty. Frank, surprisingly, remained silent, perhaps recognizing the futility of his family's antics or simply retreating to his smoky garage. But after decades of dealing with the intricate politics of parents, students, and staff as a school secretary, I was immune to their manipulations. Each call, each message, was met with a polite but firm refusal to engage. My resolve was unshakable. On day 10, Ethan, a man transformed, filed for divorce. Serena, predictable in her greed, contested it immediately, demanding spousal support and half of everything Ethan owned, including a claim to her house. But Mr. Davies, with my meticulously compiled evidence of fraud, premeditation, and emotional distress, swiftly moved to have her claims dismissed. Faced with irrefutable proof of her calculated manipulation, Serena's legal team quickly advised her to settle. She walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back and the bitter taste of defeat. By day 28, 2 days before the deadline, the house was empty. They had gone, retreating as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind a wake of destruction. The moment I stepped inside, my heart ached anew. Cigarette burns marred Arthur's antique side table. Holes pockmarked the walls where Chloe had hammered nails haphazardly, and mysterious stains discolored the carpets. The entire house reeked of stale smoke and neglect. But this time, I wasn't alone. Ethan was there, standing beside me, his face etched with regret and a quiet determination. Over the next week, we worked side by side, scrubbing, patching, painting, and polishing. It was grueling, physical labor, but with every stain we removed, every wall we repainted, every piece of furniture we restored, a different kind of healing began. The house, slowly but surely, reclaimed its former beauty, and in doing so, our broken bond began to mend. One afternoon, as we were painting the living room, Ethan paused, brush in hand. "I keep thinking I should have known, Mom," he said, his voice raw with regret. All the signs were there. Her obsession with money, her family moving in so quickly, how easily she dismissed you. I was just so blind. I put my own brush down and met his gaze. "You trusted the woman you loved, Ethan," I said gently. "That's not a character flaw. It's a reflection of your capacity for love and trust. She exploited that, but that doesn't make you foolish. It makes her cruel." I thought back to a time when he was a teenager, a minor incident of cheating on a school exam. He'd been mortified, afraid of the consequences. I had stepped in then, too, not to excuse his behavior, but to guide him, to protect him from making a mistake that could have derailed his future. "It's a bit like when you were younger," I continued, "and you made a choice that wasn't good for you. I stepped in because I loved you, because I saw a danger you couldn't, or wouldn't, acknowledge." He nodded slowly, a sad smile touching his lips. "The stakes were a lot higher this time, weren't they?" he mused. "But the principle is the same. Sometimes, love requires making hard choices, and sometimes, it requires someone else to make them for you, to open your eyes. You chose the hard truth over the comfortable lie." "Ethan," I said, squeezing his arm. "That takes courage. And I'm incredibly proud of you for that." He looked around the freshly painted room, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Mom," he asked, "why didn't you ever fully transfer the deed? You always said you would." A small smile touched my lips. "A part of me," I admitted, "just sensed that something wasn't quite right. Call it a mother's intuition, or perhaps just the accumulated wisdom of all those years dealing with human nature at the school. I just held on to that one small safety net, without even fully realizing why." He let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Your instincts," he said, shaking his head. "They saved us, didn't they?" "They did," I agreed, a warmth spreading through me. "And now, this house. This is your home, Ethan. Don't let them take that away from you." Too. Now that everything is settled, I want to transfer the deed properly. No safety nets this time. It's yours, truly. 6 months later, the phone rang, and it was Ethan, his voice brimming with a happiness I hadn't heard in years. "Mom," he began, "I've met someone. Her name is Olivia. She's a teacher, actually." My heart fluttered with cautious optimism. "And she knows everything." A genuine smile, one that reached my eyes, finally graced my face. "A teacher, you say? How wonderful," I exclaimed. "Bring her over for dinner next week, darling. My apartment could use some new company. I need to vet her." "Of course," I chuckled. "But I also want to love her. But I also want to make sure she's someone worth loving." "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For saving me. For saving us both." As I hung up, I looked around my quiet apartment, a place that now felt less like a temporary stop and more like a peaceful sanctuary. It had been a tumultuous year, filled with heartbreak and betrayal, but I had gained something invaluable. My son's respect, my own rediscovered self-worth, and the knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever imagined. Some battles, I realized, are worth fighting, even when they break your heart. Especially then. The prospect of meeting Olivia, Ethan's new girlfriend, filled me with a curious mix of excitement and a deeply ingrained maternal caution. After the ordeal with Serena, a protective instinct had hardened within me, making me wary of anyone who entered my son's life. But there was also a genuine joy in Ethan's voice when he spoke of her, a lightness that had been absent for far too long. He deserved happiness, a pure, unblemished kind of joy after the storm he had weathered. I spent the morning preparing my apartment for their visit, polishing surfaces, arranging fresh flowers, and baking Arthur's favorite lemon cake. My apartment, though smaller than the house, had become a sanctuary of its own, a place where I could breathe freely, unburdened by the ghosts of recent betrayal. Ethan was thriving, settled back into the house that was truly his, its walls now resonating with the quiet hum of peace rather than the clamor of conflict. He had even started a small garden in the backyard, something he'd always wanted to do but never made time for. Seeing him flourish brought me an immense, profound joy that soothed many of the lingering aches from the past year. As I worked, my thoughts drifted to my own life. It had been 5 years since Arthur passed. For a long time, the mere thought of companionship, let alone romance, felt like a betrayal of his memory. My focus had been on healing, on rebuilding my life on my own terms. But now, with Ethan finding his footing again, a quiet whisper of possibility began to stir within me. The memory of Serena's deception still pricked, a cautionary tale. But it hadn't made me cynical. It had simply made me wiser, more attuned to the subtle currents of human nature. The doorbell chimed precisely at 7. I smoothed down my dress, took a steadying breath, and opened the door. Ethan stood there, a wide, genuine smile on his face, a smile that finally reached his eyes. Beside him was a woman with kind, intelligent eyes and a warm, inviting smile. Her name was Olivia. She was taller than I expected, with an elegant poise and a gentle aura that immediately put me at ease. "Mom, this is Olivia," Ethan said, his hand resting protectively on her lower back. "Eleanor, it's so lovely to finally meet you," Olivia said, her voice soft but clear. She extended her hand, her grip firm and sincere. "Ethan has told me so much about you." I smiled, a real smile this time. "And I've heard wonderful things about you too, Olivia. Come in. Both of you." The evening unfolded beautifully. Olivia was everything Ethan had described and more. She was warm, engaging, and genuinely interested in my stories, particularly about my years as a school secretary. She herself was an elementary school teacher, and we quickly found common ground discussing the joys and challenges of working with children. She had that same spark in her eyes that I remembered seeing in Miss Jenkins, a genuine love for her profession and a deep empathy for others. What truly struck me, though, was the way she looked at Ethan. It wasn't the calculating gaze I had seen in Serena's eyes, nor the superficial admiration. It was a look of deep affection, respect, and quiet understanding. They shared easy laughter, inside jokes, and a comfortable intimacy that radiated warmth throughout my small apartment. Ethan, in turn, was attentive, protective, and clearly smitten, his gaze often lingering on Olivia with undisguised adoration. We talked for hours, sharing stories, anecdotes, and laughter. The lemon cake was a hit, and the conversation flowed effortlessly, a stark contrast to the strained, performative dinners I had endured with Serena and her family. There was no pretense, no underlying agenda, just the genuine connection between three people finding their way forward. As the evening drew to a close, and I watched Ethan and Olivia leave, hand in hand, a profound sense of peace settled over me. I saw in Olivia a sincerity and goodness that resonated deeply. Ethan had found true happiness, a love that was pure and honest, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. He was safe. He was loved. My job as his protector, at least in this specific battle, was complete. Standing at my window, watching their car disappear down the street, I felt a quiet joy bloom in my chest. The past year had been a painful crucible, but it had forged something strong and resilient within me. I had reclaimed my home, my dignity, and most importantly, my son. And now, as I looked out at the twinkling city lights, I allowed myself to embrace the possibility of new beginnings, not just for Ethan, but for myself as well. Perhaps, I thought, it wasn't too late to find my own quiet happiness, to explore what life still had to offer beyond the shadows of grief and betrayal. The world, once closed off, now felt open, inviting, full of promise. The weeks following Ethan and Olivia's visit settled into a comfortable rhythm. My apartment, once a retreat, now felt like a launching pad for a new chapter. I found immense joy in its simplicity, its manageable size, and the freedom it afforded me. No longer burdened by the demands of a sprawling house or the emotional drain of unwelcome guests, I rediscovered the pleasures of quiet mornings with a cup of tea, long walks in the park, and evenings spent curled up with a good book. I reconnected with old friends, women from my bridge club, and a book group that had fallen by the wayside during Arthur's illness and my subsequent grief. Their warmth and companionship were a balm to my soul, reminding me of the rich tapestry of relationships I had nurtured over the years. We laughed, shared stories, and offered each other the quiet support that only long-standing friendships can provide. I even started volunteering at the local library, finding immense satisfaction in helping others and being part of a vibrant community. But as Ethan's happiness with Olivia blossomed, a different kind of thought began to surface in my mind. The sting of Serena's betrayal had been a harsh lesson, yet it hadn't completely extinguished the spark of human connection within me. What if, I wondered, there was still a possibility for companionship for me, not a replacement for Arthur, never that, but a new kind of connection. A shared journey with someone who understood the complexities of life. With a mix of apprehension and cautious optimism, I decided to explore the world of online dating. I chose a platform specifically for older adults, hoping to find individuals looking for genuine companionship rather than fleeting romance. I crafted my profile carefully, emphasizing my love for reading, gardening, and quiet evenings, making sure to convey my desire for a meaningful connection, free from the expectations of financial gain. After all, I had learned firsthand the devastating consequences of misplaced trust and materialistic motives. My priority now was authenticity. I exchanged messages with several men. Many were quickly dismissed, their profiles either too boastful, too eager, or simply not aligning with my quiet nature. But the process itself was surprisingly enjoyable, a new way to interact and learn about different people. It was a gentle re-entry into a social world I hadn't consciously sought out for many years. Then came Mark. His profile picture showed a kind-faced man with a warm smile and intelligent eyes, framed by distinguished gray hair. He was a widower, like me, a retired university professor with a passion for history and classical music, interests that perfectly mirrored my own. Our initial messages were polite, then grew into lengthy, engaging conversations, delving into everything from our favorite authors to our thoughts on current events. We discovered a shared appreciation for quiet reflection and a similar sense of humor, dry and understated. What I valued most about Mark was his respect. He listened intently, offered thoughtful responses, and never rushed our exchanges. There was no hint of expectation, only genuine curiosity and a desire to connect on an intellectual and emotional level. We talked about our late spouses, sharing stories of love and loss, finding solace in the shared understanding of grief. It was a connection built on empathy and mutual respect, not on superficial charm or material aspirations. After 2 weeks of exchanging messages, we decided to meet for coffee. I felt a flutter of nerves, a sensation I hadn't experienced in decades, but it was accompanied by an equally strong sense of anticipation. When I walked into the bustling cafe and saw him sitting there, exactly as he looked in his profile picture, a comfortable familiarity washed over me. It felt as if I already knew him. He stood as I approached, his smile widening. "Eleanor," he said, his voice as warm and reassuring as his messages. "Mark," I replied, feeling an instant, easy rapport. Our conversation flowed effortlessly over cappuccinos and almond croissants. He was even more charming and witty in person, his eyes twinkling with humor as he recounted an amusing anecdote from his teaching days. He was attentive, asking about my life, listening with genuine interest, and sharing his own experiences with an honesty that resonated deeply with me. There was a quiet strength about him, a gentle resilience that complemented my own. As the afternoon light faded, we lingered over our empty cups, reluctant for the conversation to end. He walked me to my car, and as we said our goodbyes, he reached out and gently took my hand. "I had a wonderful time, Eleanor," he said, his gaze warm. "I'd very much like to do this again, if you're willing." A genuine smile, unburdened and truly happy, spread across my face. "I'd like that very much, Mark," I replied. Driving home, I felt a lightness in my step, a sense of hope blooming in my chest. The world was still full of kind, authentic people, and perhaps, just perhaps, there was still a new, authentic connection waiting for me. I was grateful for the journey that had brought me to this point, for the resilience I had discovered within myself, and for the quiet joy of a new beginning. Over the next few months, Mark and I's connection deepened into a profound and comforting relationship. Our initial coffee date blossomed into a series of thoughtful conversations, shared meals, and leisurely strolls through botanical gardens. We explored local museums, attended classical concerts, and spent quiet evenings at each other's apartments, reading, or simply enjoying the companionable silence. Each encounter peeled back another layer, revealing more of the kind, intelligent, and resilient people we both were. We talked about everything: our pasts, our families, our hopes for the future, and, inevitably, the profound losses we had both experienced. Mark spoke of his late wife, Emily, with a tender reverence that resonated deeply with my own memories of Arthur. There was a unique comfort in sharing the landscape of grief with someone who truly understood its contours, who knew the bittersweet ache of cherished memories. We found solace not in forgetting, but in honoring our pasts while gently, tentatively, building a new present. I found myself drawn to Mark's quiet wisdom and gentle humor. He had a way of looking at the world that was both insightful and compassionate, never cynical despite his own share of life's trials. He respected my independence, never pushing, always patient, always present. He admired my resilience, my journey through the recent upheaval, often telling me he was amazed by my quiet strength. This respect, this genuine admiration, was a cornerstone of our evolving relationship. Our dates were simple but deeply meaningful. We cooked dinners together, sharing stories over simmering pots and clinking glasses. We walked for miles, discussing everything from the latest geopolitical news to the intricate beauty of a blossoming rose. It was in these shared moments of quiet intimacy and intellectual engagement that I truly felt seen, truly felt cherished. As our connection grew, I found myself confiding in him, sharing the painful details of Serena's deception and Ethan's betrayal. It was difficult, bringing up those raw wounds again, but Mark listened with an unwavering empathy that made me feel incredibly safe. He didn't interrupt with advice or judgment, simply allowed me to articulate the depth of the hurt and the long, arduous path to healing. His presence was a steady anchor in the swirling waters of my past, his understanding a gentle balm. Knowing I could share such a vulnerable part of myself and be met with such profound compassion solidified my trust in him. It was a level of trust I hadn't thought I would ever feel again after Arthur's passing and Serena's calculated cruelties. Ethan and Olivia eventually met Mark, and their approval brought another layer of peace to my heart. Olivia, with her perceptive eye, immediately recognized Mark's genuine kindness, and Ethan, seeing the happiness in my eyes, embraced him warmly. Watching them interact, a sense of quiet contentment washed over me. My son was happy, and I was, too. I continued to cherish my independence, my routines, and the life I had meticulously rebuilt. But Mark's presence didn't diminish that independence. It enriched it. He became a cherished addition to my world, a companion who understood the rhythm of my life and enhanced it with his own gentle cadence. I realized I had found more than just companionship. I had found a true partner, someone who saw not just the old lady from Serena's cruel remarks, but the Eleanor who was resilient, wise, and still capable of deep love and connection. His hand in mine on a cool autumn evening, a shared smile over a quiet joke, the comforting presence of his arm around my shoulders. These small moments wove themselves into the fabric of my days, adding a richness and warmth that I hadn't realized I was missing. It was a gentle, unfolding happiness, born from the ashes of pain, a testament to life's unexpected turns. Looking back, I reflected on the strength I had found, the resilience that had allowed me to navigate such profound betrayals. I had been forced to confront my vulnerabilities, but in doing so, I had discovered an inner fortitude that was far more powerful than I had ever imagined. And in embracing that strength, I had also learned to embrace a new form of vulnerability, the courage to open my heart to love again, to welcome a new chapter filled with the quiet joy of authentic connection. As the seasons turned, Mark and I realized we shared another quiet dream: to travel. For years, life's responsibilities and the comfort of routine had kept us tethered to our respective homes. But now, liberated from past burdens, and with a renewed zest for life, the open road beckoned. We spent weeks poring over maps, discussing historical sites, and researching charming bed and breakfasts, the process itself a joyful adventure. Our first trip together was to explore the historical towns along the East Coast, places Arthur and I had always talked about visiting but never quite got around to. Walking through cobblestone streets, steeped in centuries of history, Mark's professorial insights brought the past vividly to life, while my own love for details allowed me to appreciate the smaller, overlooked beauties. We visited quaint museums, savored local delicacies, and spent evenings discussing the day's discoveries, our conversations flowing easily into the quiet hum of shared companionship. These shared experiences deepened our bond in ways that mere conversation could not. There was a unique intimacy in navigating unfamiliar cities together, in the comfortable silence of long drives, and in the simple act of waking up in a new place, knowing the other was there. I found myself marveling at the unexpected turns my life had taken. Just a year ago, my world had felt small, confined by grief and then shattered by betrayal. Now, it was expanding, vibrant and full of possibility. I found immense peace in these new adventures, a sense of freedom that was both exhilarating and deeply comforting. The weight of Serena's deceit, the pain of Ethan's temporary estrangement, had lifted. They were lessons learned, scars that had healed, leaving behind a stronger, more resilient Eleanor. My relationship with Ethan was now fully mended, stronger than ever. The painful confrontation had been a necessary crucible, burning away the superficial layers to reveal the pure gold of our mother-son bond. He often called, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care, sharing stories of his work, his life with Olivia, and his newfound appreciation for the quiet comforts of his home. He understood, now, the sacrifices I had made, and the profound love that had driven my actions. There were no more weak nods or averted gazes, only honest conversations and mutual respect. Mark, with his gentle presence and unwavering support, had been instrumental in helping me shed the last vestiges of cynicism that had threatened to take root after Serena's actions. He reminded me of the inherent goodness in people, of the beauty of genuine connection, and of the joy that could still be found in the simple moments of life. With him, I felt a lightness, a freedom to simply be myself, unburdened by past hurts or the need to prove anything. As we traveled, I often reflected on my resilience. I had faced adversity, fought for what was mine, and emerged not only intact, but flourishing. I understood now that true happiness wasn't about external validation or material possessions, but about cultivating self-worth, advocating for oneself, and embracing the richness of authentic relationships. We returned from our travels invigorated, already planning our next adventure. Perhaps a trip to the national parks, or a cultural tour of Europe. The possibilities felt endless. My life was no longer about merely existing. It was about actively living, exploring, and embracing every moment with an open heart. I felt a deep sense of contentment, a quiet joy that permeated my days, and an optimism for the future that I hadn't dared to dream of before. The journey had been difficult, but the destination, this unexpected chapter of happiness, was more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. As the seasons cycled through, Mark and I continued to build a life together, a life rich with shared laughter, quiet understanding, and profound affection. Our travels had solidified our bond, proving that we were not only compatible companions for daily life, but also excellent partners in adventure. We found joy in the small things: a perfectly brewed cup of tea in the morning, a shared crossword puzzle, or a spontaneous drive to watch the sunset over the ocean. After nearly a year of dating, the topic of moving in together naturally arose. It wasn't a rushed decision, but a thoughtful conversation spanning several weeks, approached with the same patience and respect that defined our relationship. For me, the idea of relinquishing some of my cherished independence, even for someone I adored, required careful consideration. My apartment, my sanctuary, represented a hard-won autonomy. Mark, ever perceptive, understood this. He assured me that it would be a partnership, a blending of two lives, not an absorption of one into the other. Your space, your routines, your freedom. They're all part of what I admire about you, Eleanor, he'd said gently. This would be about enhancing our lives together, not diminishing either of us. His words were reassuring, confirming that he valued my individuality as much as he valued our connection. We decided to take it slowly, beginning with gradually integrating our lives. We spent more nights at each other's places, leaving toothbrushes and a change of clothes, slowly merging our book collections and shared interests. We worked on projects together, Mark's practical skills complementing my organizational prowess, and found immense satisfaction in creating a shared space, piece by piece. There was a deep sense of security in his presence, a quiet happiness that settled into the very core of my being. I often reflected on the profound growth I had undergone. The woman who had been so vulnerable, so blindsided by betrayal, had transformed into someone stronger, more discerning, and utterly resolute. My journey from the initial shock of Serena's plans to the quiet contentment I now felt was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for healing and reinvention. Meanwhile, Ethan and Olivia's relationship continued to flourish. They were a beacon of genuine love and mutual respect. I cherished my new role as an eagerly anticipated guest in their home, a far cry from the unacknowledged maid I had once been. Soon, the greatest joy arrived: the news that Olivia was expecting. Becoming a grandmother again, after so many years, was a feeling of pure, unadulterated bliss. It brought a full-circle moment to my life, a profound sense of continuity and hope for the future. My past struggles now served only to deepen my appreciation for these present joys, making every smile, every shared laugh, even more precious. My friends, hearing snippets of my story, looked at me with a newfound respect, often coming to me for advice, for wisdom. I found myself becoming an unexpected source of inspiration, a testament to resilience and the power of standing up for oneself. I shared my experiences not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding of the complexities of human nature, always emphasizing the importance of trusting one's instincts and fighting for one's dignity. Despite the happiness, I remained grounded, grateful for the authentic connections that filled my life now. There was no room for pretense or superficiality. I valued the honesty, the unwavering support, and the genuine affection that surrounded me. I had learned, in the hardest possible way, that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in the richness of human relationships and the integrity of one's spirit. As Mark and I looked towards our future, whether it was another shared travel adventure or simply a quiet evening at home, it was with a deep sense of contentment and optimism. Life had thrown its most painful challenges at me, but those very challenges had shaped me into the person I was today. Strong, wise, and deeply appreciative of every moment of authentic joy. After much thoughtful discussion and careful planning, Mark and I decided to take the plunge and merge our households. It was a gradual process, filled with the delightful challenges of combining two lives, two sets of treasured belongings, and two distinct personal histories. We spent weekends sifting through boxes, deciding which pieces held the most meaning, which would fit seamlessly into our new shared space. My antique credenza, a silent witness to so much, found a place of honor in our living room, a testament to enduring love and resilience. Creating our new home together was a profound experience. We blended Mark's impressive collection of history books with my beloved novels, his comfortable armchair with my grandmother's delicate quilt. Each piece told a story, and together, they wove a new narrative, a tapestry of our combined lives. I found immense joy in the shared routines, preparing meals together, tending to our small garden, or simply sitting in comfortable silence, reading side by side. The quiet intimacy of our shared life was a constant source of contentment. Mark, with his gentle nature and unwavering support, encouraged all my passions, particularly my volunteering at the local library. He'd often drop me off, sometimes lingering to browse the new arrivals or chat with the staff, clearly proud of my contributions. The library had become more than just a place to volunteer. It was a community, a source of intellectual stimulation, and a space where I felt genuinely valued. I became a respected figure there, known for my kind demeanor, my encyclopedic knowledge of literature, and my quiet wisdom. Patrons often sought me out, not just for book recommendations, but for a listening ear or a gentle word of advice. Children, too, were drawn to my calm presence during story time, their bright, eager faces a constant source of delight. These interactions, so genuine and affirming, reinforced my sense of purpose and self-worth. It was a beautiful contrast to the dismissive treatment I had endured not so long ago. Through it all, I continued to observe human nature with a keen eye, applying the lessons learned from my past experiences. I recognized the subtle tells of true kindness versus superficial charm, the difference between genuine interest and ulterior motives. These insights, hard-won as they were, had become a valuable part of who I was, allowing me to navigate the world with a discernment that protected me while still allowing me to embrace authentic connection. I remained grounded, deeply grateful for the rich tapestry of relationships that now defined my life. The mended, stronger bond with Ethan, the joyful anticipation of a grandchild, the vibrant companionship of Mark, and the camaraderie of my friends and colleagues at the library. The turmoil of the past had faded, replaced by a deep and abiding peace. I understood, more clearly than ever, that true contentment wasn't something to be found in external circumstances or the validation of others. It was an internal state, cultivated through self-respect, integrity, and a willingness to stand up for one's own truth. The challenges I had faced had stripped away everything superficial, revealing the resilient core of Eleanor, a woman who had found her voice, reclaimed her life, and embraced a future brimming with quiet joy. The arrival of Ethan and Olivia's baby was now just months away, a tangible symbol of new beginnings and the enduring power of family. I looked forward to becoming a grandmother again, to holding that tiny, innocent life in my arms, and sharing the wisdom and love that I had accumulated over a lifetime. My heart swelled with gratitude for the journey, for the resilience that had carried me through, and for the profound happiness I now felt. Life, in its unexpected twists and turns, had brought me to a place of profound contentment, a quiet triumph of the spirit. The culmination of all the anticipation arrived with the most beautiful, tender moment: the birth of my grandson. Ethan called me from the hospital, his voice thick with emotion, announcing that Olivia had given birth to a healthy baby boy, and they had named him Arthur, after my late husband. A wave of profound joy, laced with bittersweet tears, washed over me. It was a tangible link to the past, a symbol of hope for the future, and a testament to the enduring cycle of life and love. Holding little Arthur in my arms for the first time was an experience beyond words. His tiny fingers curled around mine, his innocent gaze melting away any lingering shadows from the past. I felt a surge of pure, unconditional love, a fierce protectiveness that transcended the pain I had known. This was my legacy, this beautiful new life, a stark contrast to the greed and manipulation that had once threatened to consume our family. Being a loving grandmother, free from the burdens of emotional servitude, was a role I cherished with every fiber of my being. I watched Ethan with his son, seeing a depth of devotion and tenderness that filled my heart. He was a natural father, patient and attentive, his eyes alight with a love that was palpable. Olivia, radiant and strong, was the perfect partner, creating a loving, stable environment for their new family. Witnessing their happiness, watching my son build a family rooted in genuine affection and mutual respect, brought a profound sense of peace. It was everything I had hoped for him, everything Arthur and I had envisioned. Mark, too, embraced his role as an honorary grandfather, his gentle nature shining as he doted on little Arthur. Our life together continued to flourish. We took more trips, explored new horizons, and found endless joy in our shared adventures. But amidst the excitement of travel, we also cherished the quiet moments at home, the comfortable rhythm of our merged lives, and the simple pleasure of each other's company. As I held my grandson, I often reflected on my journey. The strength I had summoned to face Serena, the resilience I had cultivated through grief and betrayal, had brought me to this moment of profound happiness. I was no longer defined by the pain of the past, but by the courage with which I had navigated it. I had faced my fears, stood up for myself, and in doing so, had reclaimed not just my home, but my self-worth and my peace of mind. I found myself occasionally sharing snippets of my story with trusted friends, not with bitterness, but with a quiet sense of wisdom. My experiences had taught me invaluable lessons about intuition, self-preservation, and the importance of drawing clear boundaries, even with family. I hoped that my story, in some small way, could offer guidance and inspiration to others facing similar challenges. My volunteering at the library continued to bring fulfillment, and my community remained a source of comfort and connection. I maintained my independence, cherishing the freedom I had fought for, yet embraced the rich companionship Mark brought into my life. It was a delicate, beautiful balance between autonomy and shared joy. In the quiet moments, I realized that true healing had also involved forgiving myself for being blindsided, for trusting too easily, for not recognizing the signs sooner. That act of self-forgiveness was a crucial step, allowing me to fully release the past and embrace the present with an open heart. My life, once shrouded in the long shadow of grief and then the turmoil of betrayal, had blossomed into something vibrant and full of unexpected beauty. I looked at little Arthur, sleeping peacefully in his crib, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been arduous, but the destination was a boundless landscape of love, joy, and new beginnings. My 75th birthday arrived, not with the quiet reflection I once might have anticipated, but with a vibrant celebration, a testament to the rich, full life I had built. Ethan and Olivia hosted a small gathering at the house, now fully restored and imbued with the warmth of their growing family. The scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air, as it once did during holidays. But this time, it was genuine, untainted by malice. Little Arthur, now a lively toddler, chased after balloons, his infectious laughter echoing through the rooms. Watching him, seeing the joy in Ethan and Olivia's eyes, filled me with an indescribable happiness. This was the legacy I had fought for, a family built on love, respect, and authenticity. Mark was by my side, his hand often finding mine, his quiet smile a constant source of comfort and reassurance. His presence in my life was a beautiful affirmation of renewed hope and the unexpected joy of a second love. My closest friends from the bridge club were there, their faces crinkling with laughter as we reminisced about old times. Even Miss Jenkins, my former colleague from the school, made an appearance, her kind eyes twinkling as she congratulated me. My life was surrounded by genuine connections, a supportive community that had seen me through my darkest days and celebrated my triumphs. It was a stark contrast to the isolation and betrayal I had once faced. As I blew out the candles on my cake, its gentle glow illuminating the loving faces around me, I reflected on the incredible journey of the past few years. From the profound grief of losing Arthur, to the shattering betrayal by Serena and her family, to the arduous battle to reclaim my dignity and my home, and finally, to this moment of vibrant new beginnings. It had been a winding path, filled with unexpected turns and deeply painful lessons. But standing there, surrounded by love, I realized that every challenge had ultimately strengthened me. The pain had refined my spirit, sharpening my intuition, and solidifying my resolve. I felt deeply content, grateful for every authentic connection, every shared laugh, and every quiet moment of peace. My self-worth, once undermined, now stood unshakable, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I understood that life, even in its twilight years, was not about slowing down, but about embracing every new chapter with an open heart and a willingness to learn. Later in the evening, Ethan raised a toast, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke of my strength and courage. When it was my turn, I stood, a glass of sparkling cider in hand, and looked out at the faces of my loved ones. To all of you, I began, my voice clear and steady. Thank you for being here, for sharing this beautiful moment with me. Life, as we all know, can throw us curveballs. It can bring unimaginable joy, and it can bring profound sorrow and betrayal. My gaze lingered briefly on Ethan, a silent acknowledgement of our shared past, then swept across the room. But what I've learned, more than anything, is the power of resilience, the importance of trusting your instincts, of standing up for what's right, even when it's incredibly difficult, and, most importantly, the immeasurable value of true, authentic connections. A quiet ripple of applause, filled with understanding and affection, spread through the room. I stand before you today, I continued, a genuine smile gracing my lips, not as an old woman who has merely survived, but as a woman who has lived, truly lived, and is ready for whatever new adventures life still has in store. So, let us raise our glasses, not just to the past, but to the beautiful, unpredictable future, to new beginnings, to unwavering friendships, and to the enduring power of love. As the glasses clinked, I felt a deep sense of peace, a quiet triumph that settled deep within my soul. My age was simply a number, a marker of the wisdom I had gained. I looked forward to more travels with Mark, more laughter with my friends, and countless moments of joy with little Arthur. I had lived authentically, fought for my truth, and in doing so, had found a happiness that was richer and more meaningful than I could have ever imagined. Life, for Eleanor, settled into a rhythm of serene fulfillment, a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of independence, love, and purpose. The echoes of past betrayal grew fainter, replaced by the vibrant symphony of her present. She continued to thrive, maintaining a spirited autonomy even as her relationship with Mark deepened into an enduring partnership. They were a testament to the fact that love, and indeed life itself, can bloom anew, even in the autumn years. Their days were filled with quiet adventures, discovering new walking trails, experimenting with exotic recipes, and delving into subjects that sparked their mutual curiosity. Mark often read aloud to her from his vast collection of historical texts, his voice a comforting cadence in their shared living room, while Eleanor introduced him to the nuanced beauty of classic literature she had come to love during her library days. They were each other's greatest companions, intellectual equals, and unwavering supports. The bond with Ethan and Olivia only grew stronger, particularly as little Arthur transitioned from a wobbly toddler to a curious, energetic preschooler. Eleanor relished her role as grandmother, a guiding light and a source of unconditional love. She spent countless hours with Arthur, reading him stories, teaching him about her garden, and watching him explore the world with wide-eyed wonder. Seeing him flourish in such a loving, stable environment was a constant source of immense joy, a living testament to the victory she had secured for her family's future. Eleanor remained an active and cherished member of her community, her volunteering at the library evolved. She began leading a popular book club for seniors, her insights and gentle facilitation making it a much-anticipated weekly event. She also found herself in an informal mentoring role for younger volunteers, sharing not just her organizational skills, but also the invaluable life lessons she had garnered through her own experiences. She offered guidance without judgment, a beacon of wisdom for those navigating their own challenges. In the quiet moments, Eleanor often reflected on the enduring power of her quiet strength. She realized that her seemingly unassuming nature had always harbored a core of steel, a resilience that had been forged in the fires of life's trials. The transformation from a woman who had allowed herself to be overlooked and exploited to one who had courageously fought for her truth and emerged victorious was profound. It was a journey from passive acceptance to empowered action, a testament to the inner fortitude that lay within everyone, waiting to be discovered. There was a deep comfort in knowing that justice had been served, that Serena and her family had faced the consequences of their avarice. But more than that, there was a profound appreciation for the simplicity and authenticity of her current life. Gone were the pretenses, the hidden agendas, the emotional manipulation. What remained was real, genuine love, honest relationships, and a peace that permeated every aspect of her existence. Eleanor embraced her role as a matriarch, not in a demanding or authoritative way, but as a respected figure whose wisdom and integrity inspired those around her. Her story, though not widely publicized, became a quiet legend among her trusted circle, a reminder that even the most unassuming among us possess the power to reclaim our narratives. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for this second chance at happiness, for the ability to live her life on her own terms, surrounded by love and respect. Each new day was an opportunity, a blank page waiting to be filled with new experiences, new learning, and new joys. Eleanor continued to look forward, her spirit unburdened, her heart full, embracing the future with unwavering optimism and a profound sense of purpose. Her journey was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a beautiful narrative of strength, resilience, and the ultimate triumph of quiet dignity. Eleanor often found herself in moments of quiet reflection, gazing out from the window of the home she now shared with Mark, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Her journey had come full circle, from a place of profound vulnerability and silent suffering to a vibrant landscape of triumph and deep contentment. The woman who had once been dismissed as the old lady had emerged as a matriarch of formidable strength and quiet wisdom, her spirit unbowed and her heart open. She often thought about the invaluable lessons she had learned, lessons etched not just in her mind, but in the very fiber of her being, the importance of trusting one's intuition, that faint whisper of unease that had prevented her from fully relinquishing her home, the critical necessity of self-worth, of recognizing that her dignity was non-negotiable, even when challenged by those she loved, and above all, the power of setting boundaries, of drawing lines in the sand, and courageously defending them. It's not about being loud or aggressive, she would sometimes tell her friends, her voice soft but firm. It's about knowing your truth and having the courage to stand by it. It's about finding your voice, even if it's a quiet one, and using it to protect what truly matters. She hoped her story, in its own way, could serve as a beacon for others, encouraging them to reclaim their own narratives, to fight for their dignity, and to never underestimate the power of their inner strength. Her present was a tapestry woven with threads of authentic love and unwavering respect. Mark was her steadfast companion, his gentle presence a constant source of joy and intellectual stimulation. Their shared life was a testament to the beauty of companionship built on mutual admiration and understanding. Her bond with Ethan, now fully healed and deeper than ever, was a cherished gift, a living example of forgiveness and renewed connection. Olivia, her warm and intelligent daughter-in-law, had brought a loving stability into Ethan's life. And little Arthur, her bright and boisterous grandson, was the effervescent embodiment of hope and the promise of a vibrant future. True happiness, Eleanor had discovered, resided not in material possessions or external validation, but in these genuine connections, in a life lived with purpose and integrity. She found joy in her volunteering, in her book club, in her garden, and in the simple, everyday moments shared with those she loved. She was at peace, having navigated life's most daunting challenges with a resilience that surprised even herself. The shadows of betrayal and loss had receded, replaced by a radiant light of gratitude and fulfillment. Eleanor's story, in its quiet power, was a testament to the enduring human spirit. It was a reminder that even when life deals its cruelest blows, when trust is shattered and hearts are broken, there is always a path forward. It may be arduous, it may be filled with unexpected turns, but with courage, conviction, and a firm belief in one's own worth, it is possible to not only survive, but to truly flourish. She continued to live vibrantly, embracing each new day with a grateful heart and an open mind. Her days were filled with laughter, learning, and the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. Eleanor's final thoughts often revolved around the profound truth she had uncovered: that true power resides not in outward displays of dominance, but in the quiet dignity of authenticity, the unwavering courage to stand for one's truth, and the boundless capacity for love and forgiveness. Her legacy was not just the home she had reclaimed, but the renewed spirit she had cultivated, a living testament to resilience, love, and the quiet dignity of a life well lived.